fight and we're looking good. You'll be in for a fight and we fight pretty good. Getting goals is our job and we get goals good. Looking good, we are Carlisle United.
Hello everyone, you're listening to the Brunton Bugle, the number one place to get a Carlisle fix in the podcast world. I'm Lee Rooney.
And I'm Dan McLennan.
United lose at Wycombe but pick up a battling point at home to promotion hopefuls Peterborough as the goalkeeper debate is reopened. We look back on two contrasting performances before looking ahead to this weekend's trip to Bolton with the Blue Army.
With a pass so true to Boulder Stone and Clark's in view. There's a cross and a run.
A Blue Army is very much the appropriate phrase, isn't it, Dan? Because it's going to be an army travelling down to it's not Lancashire, is it? It's great. Well, I suppose it is old Lancashire, isn't it? Greater Manchester. It isn't these days, but yeah, it's going to be a hell of a following down at Bolton, isn't it?
Yeah, about 4,300 expected, which is just incredible. I mean, we were struggling to get that as a home game 2 years ago, you know.
That is more than attended Keith Millen's last game in charge, which is quite remarkable when you think about it. More on him later, though.
I was going to say more on Keith later.
Yeah, and quite incredibly, we're going to be mentioning him in the X-Blues section. Yeah. But, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, not bad. What's anything been happening while I've been not on?
It's been pretty quiet, hasn't it? You know, it's nearly a month since I think we had Dan on, wasn't it? I think we made this out before. I think Mike's been on, and I've had Greg. We've had Nick come on as well. He did an episode as well.
Yeah,
so thanks very much to those guys for
I've
stepping in.
I've been a bit busy with other stuff.
Yes, well, we'll sort of very briefly touch on that in a minute, but yeah. So in today's episode, we've got two games to cover. We've got the Wycombe game and the Peterborough game. Unfortunately, none of us were available to do a preview of the Peterborough game. I do apologise to everyone for that, but it probably won't happen too often this season. It was just one of those coincidences where we're all busy at different times, so unfortunately no time to get us all together to record something. So we'll be looking back on the Wycombe game, looking back on the Peterborough game, and also looking ahead to the Bolton game this weekend. Just a reminder though, before we get into that, of our sponsor for this season. Yes, it is the Carlisle Sports Club London branch who are sponsoring us for the third season in a row. We really, really appreciate their fantastic support. It really helps us in terms of hosting costs for the podcast. They do lots of fantastic stuff for the club, do the London branch in terms of fundraising, and they arrange stuff for away trips and things like that, and also travel and pubs to go to and stuff like that. You can join them wherever. You don't have to live in London, the South East to join though, do you, Dan? Where could you live if you wanted to join?
Libreville in Gabon.
Oh, that'd be an interesting one. Libreville in Gabon, yeah. Any others?
That just came on the top of my head because there was a question about Gabon on Chase earlier.
Oh, that would be pointless for you. No, he's
no.
these days. No.
Completed that, mate.
No. exactly. Yes, so you can do that. And as we keep saying, if you live in Jacksonville, Florida, you can join as well. So there you go.
Speaking of, quick shout to two of our newer listeners.
Yes,
Tom 2 and Nick, who both told me recently they listen to the Bugle, so good to have you listening, fellas.
That's slightly worrying for me, though. I've got to be careful what we say now. Fantastic to have Tom Piatic 2, and what's Nick's name? Nick I keep forgetting I've got it written down somewhere here, but we'll dig it out. DeMassey, that's the one. I knew it was something like that. So Nick DeMassey. So guys, thanks very much for listening. It's great to see how involved they are on social media actually as well, and Jenny as well. She's been posting a lot of stuff, hasn't she? Over the last few days in terms of them attending games, so really good stuff. But yeah, in terms of the London branch, if you want to find out more about them, go to their website, carlisle.londonbranch.org. Right, Mike has done us a question of the week, Dan. Do you want to save that for the start of the second half of the show?
And I'll do it now.
Go on, right. So
we'll come back to it at half time.
Mike has done us a question of the week, so I'm guessing it's Bolton themed. Let's hear what he's got to say.
In 2008, former Bolton and Carlisle defender Danny Livesey was named in League One Team of the Year while playing for the Blues. Now, also in that Team of the Year, we had one other Carlisle player, one former Carlisle player, and a Brunton Park pantomime villain. Who are they?
Ooh, I think we know the Carlisle player.
I think I know who the pantomime villain will be.
I think I do as well. I think I know the pantomime villain. I think the Carlisle player is obvious. It's Kieran Westwood, isn't it? We all know that. That's pretty, that season he was the outstanding goalkeeper in League One. The pantomime villain, are you thinking a ginger midfielder by any chance?
No, I was thinking of a striker.
Who?
Jermaine Beckford.
I thought he would just be the ex-player.
Yeah,
I
then that did come to mind as well. Yeah,
I think Nicky Bailey might be the midfielder because he was very good. Was it for Southend that season? I think because they were right up there, if memory serves me right. We'll come back to it at the start.
yeah,
Of the
we'll
second
have a
episode,
think about that.
So there you go. That's the question of the week from Mike. Right, let's go to the news section, Dan. There's not much to cover in terms of news. Just basically, it was an update from the CSG meeting in terms of sell-on clauses. That was one of the interesting things that came out of this, wasn't it? In terms of the so that was involving Henderson and Trafford.
Yeah, I think the obviously exact figures can't be told due to confidentiality clauses and all that, but the suggestion was it was in the for both combined was in the region of what the pure pay debt originally was when it got novated, which was 1.1 million. I think most people seem to have settled on Trafford being approximately 750k. And Henderson being about 500k, because obviously he was minus some previously received money. Them two together are basically 1.25 million, which, give or take a few thousand, I don't think you're going to be far off. But it will come over 4 years. Yeah,
which is a shame, because it used to be that you get it in one lump, but they seem to have changed that again now, haven't they? So a bit frustrating, but there you go. A few of a little bits came out of that. It's all really positive in terms of shirt sales and catering and stuff like that, and match tickets as well. Everything's on the up, even though we're not doing that great on the pitch at the start of the season. We're doing okay, but off the field, everything seems to be really positive, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It's, fan zones going from strength to strength. Even Tuesday night when it was, a bit of a less crowd on a Tuesday, it was still busy. The bars are busy, the food outlets are busy. It's good.
Well, you think you go back. I remember going to the game against Port Vale a couple of years ago under Millen on a Tuesday night. It was around about my birthday. And I think we only had about just over 3,000 at that game. We had double that last night for the game against Peterborough. And Peterborough only bought, fair play to them, just under 300 fans on a Tuesday night all the way. That's a hell of an effort. But yeah, it just goes to show, doesn't it, the positivity in terms of stuff like that. In terms of CSG, lots of good positive stuff in there. Got to briefly mention, obviously you can't talk too much about the takeover, Dan. We sort of mentioned this before in terms of, your position at kiosk and that. But just in terms of the meeting the other week with the Piatics, must be really pleased with how that went, because it's the first chance we've had to talk to you about this.
Yeah, really. Long day. I think I did put a 10 to 8 shift in that Sunday. But no, ticket take-up was good. We obviously have one or two don't show because, things happen and that. But we had over, I think we had about 225 in the building and a little few more on the stream. Big shout out to Chris who set the stream up himself, and that worked really well. So about 500 members we actually hit 1,100 members this week. So it's
wow. It's you had another 100 joins since then. It's still growing. That's incredible.
It started slowing down this last couple of days, but we're up to 1,100, and obviously the onus is on us to sort of do more and push on more. But it looks like we're going to be a bit more involved. As and when the takeover hopefully goes through. But no, the actual meeting itself was brilliant. Tom Senior spoke excellently. The rest of the family were very approachable afterwards when, we were tidying up and fans were having a drink. And all in all, it was good. Obviously, the votes happened since. We thought it would be a landslide. It proved to be. And now we just wait to see what happens in the coming weeks, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Yes, they've obviously said they want to have it done hopefully by, we've run about in the next week or two, isn't it, basically? I think they said about 10th to the 14th, around about the one it done. So fingers crossed it can be sorted out, and we'll be giving you some good news on the pod. And we are hoping, aren't we, Dan, that we're going to get at least the two Toms on the pod to talk about things if the takeover goes through afterwards.
Yeah. I'll be sorting that out hopefully if and when it goes through.
Brilliant stuff. Right, let's get into it then, Dan. Time for some match reviews, and we're going to start with the game of the weekend, which was Wycombe Wanderers 2, Carlisle United 0. I'd probably argue the most disappointing performance of the season so far, would you say? I mean, slightly better in the second half than the first half when we were down to 10 men, but overall, we just never really got out of the blocks, did we, in this one?
No, it wasn't brilliant. It's always a tough place to go. It's, we don't generally do well at Wycombe, apart from one Raj 4-1 win the day after.
There, didn't we, under Curl?
Yeah.
But that's
Knight,
the only one.
I remember when Knighton sacked Mervyn Day, we won 4-1, and a 4-1 win was possibly the worst result of the season because
Janssen absolutely ran the show that day, didn't he?
Yeah. But no, we just didn't get going, and obviously events we're about to touch on didn't help.
No, there was no changes to the team for the third game in a row. I think it was kind of expected that, wasn't it, really? The team wasn't going to change. As you say there, the big talking point, the unavoidable talking about it, is 29 minutes in, the red card for Jokal Andersson. This was just a shambles of a moment in the game, wasn't it, really? It's reminiscent of Hallam Hope and the goal he scored for us against Notts County.
Yeah.
It went viral, wasn't it?
I think the disappointing aspect of it was, one, the awareness wasn't there, and two, I don't think anyone really helped him by saying behind you. It sounds like a pantomime, that, but that's what it was,
So for anyone who hasn't seen it, essentially, Anderson deals quite well with the ball into the box, claims it. All the players go out, except Sam Vokes, who's lurking behind him. He's not even off the pitch, is he? He's still on the pitch and just right behind Anderson. Anderson just has a look upfield to see what's available, rolls the ball out, and Vokes is like, thank you very much, nips in. And to be fair, Vokes is actually quite slow, and his first touch isn't that great, to be fair. Gives Anderson a chance to potentially challenge, but he's so slow to react to it, isn't he? And this is something we've been critical of him on the pod in recent episodes, is his reaction time sometimes to incidents like this. He reacts very slowly and sort of lunges in, possibly clips Vokes' legs first, and then sort of bundles into him. I don't think he handles the ball, I've watched this back a few times, and I can't see the point where he actually had... It kind of looks like his hand brushes towards it, but I'm pretty sure he doesn't handle it. I don't know what you thought when you saw this.
Yeah, it was just a mess. You could see why it was potentially classed as a handball at first sight. Yeah. You could see why it was potentially classed as a foul. Yeah. It just... There was nothing good in it. It was a mess, and unfortunately, you got to go.
Yeah, I kind of think that's the reason why Simmer decided we wouldn't appeal it. I don't think it was so much. I think he probably looking for. Well, he probably hasn't handled it, but he's bundled into him, and there's an argument that he's not really got the ball first time there. So, not great. And the frustrating thing for me is I've seen a lot of people saying, "Oh, his defenders didn't warn him." As a goalkeeper, you should still be looking behind you in that situation. If you're coming to the edge of your box especially, you should be checking behind you. He doesn't once look behind him to check whether anyone's there. And if you do watch, actually, from the Pitch Side Blues video, I can't remember if it's Mellish or Lavelle does point back to him just as he's about to throw the ball, saying, behind you. But he's so slow to react to it again that, Vogue snips in. And, red card, and Thomas Hoda has to come on. Luke Plange goes off. I think Luke was very happy about that, but I think at the end of the day, it was the only real decision to make, wasn't it, in that situation, to take his striker off. And you're always going to go for Plange over Maguire in that situation, in terms of having some experience on the pitch. They had a few early chances before that. I think Keogh had a decent chance for them. I think McCleary had a couple of ones where he had a header that clipped the post. Farino clipped the post from a header from a McCleary cross. And then comes the penalty. Oh, well, no, to be fair, Maguire had a chance before the red card, didn't he? One where he was sort of played in behind and tried to lob the keeper with a first-time effort that just went onto the roof of the net. But, the penalty as well, not particularly great defending this, was it?
No. Again, just annoying. Another mess, and two big moments that have been, and I'll keep saying it, messy, and basically decided the game.
I've seen a few people say they think because basically McCleary gets into the box, gets past Huntington, and he sort of dives in. And I've seen a few people say he won the ball. For me, it's a bit of a scissor tackle, and I don't think you're ever going to get away with that, are you?
Well, yeah, you can win the ball and still be penalised these days, depending how you win it.
Yeah. For me, I think he's kind of almost pulled him back and gone through the back of him to get to the ball, hasn't he? And I look back and thought, look, I'd have to be closer to see whether it wasn't. But for me, when I saw it, I thought, looks a foul to me. I didn't really argue too much of it. So, yeah, really disappointing. But it is what it is. And Luke Lee steps up and sends Holy the wrong way to give them the lead into the second half. And United were better second half, to be fair. We had a few chances.
We had a spell where we certainly competed,
Yeah, I should say after the red card as well, Finn Back did hit the post as well with an effort from the edge of the box, which was he was a bit unlucky with. Garn had a chance that he volleyed over the bar, but you always felt that Wycombe maybe were just sort of holding back and had a chance to step it up, and as it was, they did. And Sam Vokes gets the second goal, and I feel again this is a soft goal to concede. What do you think?
Yeah, it wasn't brilliant, but by the time it was scored, we're probably starting to flag a little bit, playing with a man less. Was it just on the half hour when the red card happened? Just before?
Yeah, just on the half an hour. So we played pretty much an hour with
so
10 men.
It's a long time to play with 10 men. Sometimes if it's later in the game, you can sort of, your energy gets you through it. Yeah. But when you're going deep into second halves, tiredness can kick in.
Yeah, so for the second goal, ball's played into Vokes on the edge of the box, and he does well to hold off Lavelle, but I feel like Lavelle could get a bit tighter and stop him turning. I think he's allowed to turn a little bit too easily. Hits a low shot, and at first I thought maybe Holy could do better, but actually I think it's right in the corner, isn't it? And there's not really a huge amount he could have done about it, and that was it really. So really frustrating in terms of that. I prepared a preview just in case we, in terms of the running order that we have for the pods, Derby Dan, that was based on us looking at that and almost looking ahead to the Peterborough game. So a lot of it's kind of not that relevant now, really, isn't it? But just a few points to pick it out. In terms of Anderson, it really reopened the debate, didn't it, in terms of who was going to be number one keeper really for the next game. Oh, the next game obviously was going to be Holy, but long term it kind of offered a way back in for Holy, didn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And as we'll talk about in the Peterborough game, I think it's fair to say it's Holy's shirt to lose now, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the frustrating thing with Anderson is you can see a really good shot stopper there, can't you? He's made some the game against Stevenage especially, he was fantastic in that game. And some of the ones, the ones against Shrewsbury had a decent game there. But you just feel like there's a rick there, and I don't feel as confident on set pieces and things like that. He's going to dominate. There's just a feeling of like there's something. Even the Stevenage game where he had a great game, he was lucky in that one that he didn't concede another goal that was disallowed for offside that wasn't offside. So it's one of those ones you maybe just have to take him out the firing line for a bit and then put Thomas back in and give him a chance to establish himself in there as well. In terms of Wycombe, I mean, we've got to accept that they were in the Championship a couple of years ago, weren't they? And they've built a squad up over the last 4 or 5 seasons at least. In fact, longer, you could probably argue, under Ainsworth. So that's what we're competing against, and we're just sort of on the start of that journey, aren't we? Yeah,
definitely. They've been up to the Championship, never mind League One.
Yeah.
And they are a smaller club than us, but they sort of show that it is possible. So.
And they've got American owners as well, to be fair.
Mm.
Does it go to show, doesn't it? Yeah. Right, so we've got 2 6-second reviews from that game, so we'll see if there's any other talking points they come out with. First up, Chris Foster. I think Chris Foster's a long-time Blues fan from the old mailing list, isn't he?
Yes.
And I think this might be the first review he sent us in, so here's Chris's review of the Wycombe game.
Hi there, Chris Foster here with my 60-second review of the 2-0 away defeat to Wycombe Wanderers. We had a tough start to the game. We were inviting pressure on too far back and didn't create much. Didn't push forward enough and seemed to be caught short on the ball without options to move forward. It was a recipe for disaster really, and it soon struck with some bizarre decision making from Jokkel Anderson, with a complete lack of awareness of what's going on around him, and his reaction to that was just unbelievable. He can have no complaints about the red card. Other than that, though, the referee did make some very poor decisions, not more so with the penalty, which, even if Simo says otherwise, with the spirit of the law or letter of the law, it wasn't a penalty. Huntington got the ball, Wycombe player didn't even appeal, but it was given anyway, and it set us back for the rest of the game. Even from there, we did play better for the second half, and we had some great opportunities, we just couldn't make the most of them, and ultimately capitulated to 2-0. I can't see where the wins are going to come from here, but I'm sure we'll get them anyway, and up the Blues.
Pretty concise there from Chris. It's interesting, from someone who was at the game, has got a different view in terms of the penalty, isn't it? Really, he was, because it was right in front of the Blues fans as well, so he had a much more up close and personal view of it. So yeah, maybe goes to show. So there you go. Right, the second one, Chris Martin. He's a regular sender in of these, isn't he, Dan? So here is Chris's review.
2-0 Wycombe, and to be fair, they deserved it. Really enjoyable atmosphere before the game, seeing the Piratex interact with so many fans. I was one of the people there with a USA flag, but I was outdone by the man who had a USA flag and a USA hat, so well done to him. Really enjoyable atmosphere, 400 of us there, which was good. The less said about the goalkeeper, the better. But I will admit, I am one of Thomas Holy's biggest critics. In fact, I remember doing a 60-second review for you for Doncaster or Crew around Christmas, and I slated him and I thought he was useless. Well, if that's the backup option, then Thomas Holy's starting to look like Gianluigi Buffon. I think the place would have gone absolutely wild if he got the penalty. I'm not saying we looked better with 10 men. It was still difficult. McCleary absolutely ran the show. But we did look better with wingers, and I'd like to say play with wingers a little bit more this season.
It's a fair point. We'll get on to that in a minute, actually, in terms of the Peterborough game, in terms of wingers, because that's the debate, I think, that's going to be ongoing for the next few games, I'd imagine. Pretty fair assessment again there. Nice to hear about the Piatics as well, interacting with the fans before the games, and nice photos of them. I love the photo of Tom too, though. Dan, that was a belter, wasn't it, of him with his head in his hands?
Yeah. Welcome to the real Carlisle, chaps.
Oh yes, welcome to the real Carlisle United. Go and find the photo of me from the Sutton game a couple of seasons ago. That sums up being a Carlisle fan. It's one of my profile pictures somewhere anyway. But there you go. Pretty fair assessment in terms of all that stuff, Dan. Before we go to the preview game, just a little rundown of the League One results from the weekend. Barnsley 0, Blackpool 1. Blackpool getting a few results together now, aren't they? They're doing okay. Derby 0, Cambridge 0. Not a great result for Derby. I'd have expected them to win that one. Exeter have really dropped off, actually, in the last few games, haven't they? They've suddenly started dropping down the table. They lost 2-0 at home to Northampton. Fleetwood, they got a 1-0 victory over Leyton Orient. Lincoln City, 2-0 win over Cheltenham. We'll talk about Cheltenham in the midweek results as well, because it's not great for them at the moment, to be fair. Peterborough, they got a 2-0 win over Bristol Rovers. Port Vale, they lost 1-0 at home to Bolton. There was a 0-0 between Reading and Burton, and 0-0 between Shrewsbury and Cheltenham. A lot of 0-0s, wasn't there? You noticed that in League One at the weekend. Stevenage, they lost 3-1 at home to Oxford. Wigan lost 2-1 at home to Portsmouth, and then obviously our game at Wycombe was a 2-0 win to them. Right, on to the Peterborough game, Dan. Carlisle United 1, Peterborough 1. Much more enjoyable game to talk about, this one, wasn't it? Although it didn't quite look like that in the first 20 minutes or so, I think it's fair to say. It looked a little bit terrifying.
Yeah, we know what Peterborough are in this division. They're a solid team, likely going to be in and around the playoffs, if not the promotion places. And start of the game, they showed us why. They've spent money on the squad. They sell players for money. They probably deserve another go in the Championship, but they've got to get there, obviously. But no, they started strongly, and Clark Harris up front. That's a proper League One striker, isn't it? What you would give for one of those?
I mean, £1.2 million they paid for him. I mean, I was trying to work this out. Do you reckon we've spent £1.2 million in transfers in the last 20 years in total?
Probably
we'll
not.
We'll have a little think after we record the pod, and we'll tweet maybe tomorrow. But I don't reckon we do, because I reckon we've only done maybe 4 or 5 over 100 grand, or close to 100 grand. So, yeah, it's an astonishing difference, isn't it, really, in terms of the budget? And, hopefully we'll start to spend a little bit more soon and get a few better players in. But, yeah, it just goes to show. And as you say, they spend a lot of money because I worked this out while I was listening to the game. I got it slightly wrong when I sent it to BBC Radio Cymru because I forgot to mention Peter Cayoso, who's on loan. But 8 of their starting 11 they paid fees for. Other than the only other 3 were Peter Cayoso is on loan from Rotherham, and I think Burrows and another one who's come through their academy. So just goes to show, doesn't it? Really, they just pick off players. And I was looking actually, they've picked a few from Exeter and a few from Barnet, haven't they? They seem to have these strange links where they go to particular clubs and pick off their best players.
Peterborough have always been quite good at picking up National League players and recycling them on. Maybe spending $250,000 to sign them, but we'll then get $1 million plus when they sell them. So they do well like that. Yeah,
I think the only one I can think of recently where they haven't, where it doesn't seem to have worked out yet, is the lad from Boreham Wood, who's on loan at Fleetwood. What's his name again? Shaminga, is that the one?
Yeah.
He scored a load of goals. Come on, go Shaminga, yeah. No, not from Boreham Wood, he was from Chesterfield, wasn't he? That's where they got him from, yes. No, yeah, so I think he's the only one recently I can think of that they've, where it hasn't quite worked out like that, but there you go. So for this one, 3 changes to the start 11, 1 forced and 2 other that were tactical. Thomas Shirley obviously coming in for Jokel Anderson for his suspension, with Gabe Breeze coming onto the bench. And the other 2, it's one that, if we'd done the preview of the Peterborough game, I probably would have suggested maybe would have happened. Paul Huntington came out the starting 11, along with Luke Plange. Alfie McCalmont and Joe Garner came in, and United went to a 4-3-3. Were you surprised by this?
Well, I first of all, I think it was more a 4-1-4-1 than a 4-3-3.
I think when we were
a couple
attacking...
of times when I looked, and Guy was just sort of, when we're in the lines, Guy was like a 1 behind the 4 almost. But, it's 4-1-4-1, but it can go to 4-3-3 when, certain situations.
When you were attacking, which we weren't doing a huge amount in that first half, to be fair. So you probably bang on the money there, Dan, in terms of 4-1-4-1. Were you surprised though with the change?
Yes and no. I did think we may go to a 4. The problem if we go to a 4 is both Hunt and Sam Lavelle are blessed with pace.
Yeah.
That's not doing a disservice. That's just a fact.
No.
And I think Lavelle's probably shaded Hunt this season for me.
Mm-hmm.
And with keeping Big John in, you sort of got the left-right-sided balance that you need.
And John can get back and cover. He's got a bit of pace about him, hasn't he? A bit of energy.
Plus, you've got to remember, Hunt doesn't always play Tuesday night. He missed. Was it the League Cup game he got rested for?
Harrogate he got rested for.
Yeah.
It kind of makes sense that, because the thing with him as well is he's what, is he 36 now? I can't remember. I think he had a birthday fairly recently, didn't he? You've got to manage him through some of these games now. You've got to be careful. And this weekend, such a big game, the big crowd behind us. You'd think you'd rather keep him fresh for that one, wouldn't you, than the Peterborough game? And you give a chance to change it up and do something different in terms of that, don't you?
Yeah. Yes, he has just turned 36, by the way. I mean, I know Bolton usually line up in a 3-4-1-2 or similar. So we might go back to a back 3 to match them this weekend. It'd be no surprise if he came in. There are others in the picture now, but we'll talk about that later in the preview. It's at the end of the day, Simo's job is to make hard decisions, and if dropping his captain for a midweek game's one of them, so be it.
Yeah. What about Plange dropping off the bench to the bench for Joe Garner?
I think that's just sort of reflective on how our forwards haven't really clicked, gelled, for want of a better word. We're still sort of looking for that ideal combination.
No, I think you're right there. Yeah, just trying to find the right pairing, or free to play up there at the moment if you're playing 4-3-3. In terms of chances in the game, I mean, they started like a house on fire, Peter, didn't they? That pace-wise were just really going at us, and you could probably see why Simo had switched formations to try and counter that, couldn't you? Because down the wings, Jones and Kyoso was supposed to be right back, but he was playing more like a right winger for most of the game, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was really, really impressive. So,
Speaking of wings, I just saw BBC Cumbria on the socials earlier put a stat that I think Finn Back and Jack Armour are both in the top list of most tackles in the division.
Yeah, top 20, aren't they? Along John Mellish, I think he's also in there possibly as well, I think. So, yeah, quite impressive that. Early chance after literally about 2 minutes, wasn't there, for Peterborough? A great run down the left by Jones. He played a ball in that Mason Clark dummied, and it fell to Clark Harris, and you'd back him 9 times out of 10, wouldn't you, to put that in the back of the net from 12 yards out, but he blazed it over the bar. Really big chance. There was another one not long after that. Kyoso had a run down the right this time, and he played it into Clark Harris. He turned quite nicely on the ball, but I think Lavelle got a really smart block in to deflect the ball wide. Holy then made a really good save on to deny Jones from a Kyoso ball into the box, although the offside flag was up with that one. And then Clark Harris again, he must have had about 6 or 7 chances on his own, mustn't he, in this game? He tried his luck from 20 yards, and Holy brilliantly tipped the ball around the post, and some great footage of that, isn't it, on the goal cam on the club's Twitter account. It's worth seeing. Again, another great save from Holy to deny Mason Clark from a tight angle. And then United's only real chance, I would say, in the first half was when Maguire was sort of... In fact, there was a couple of chances, to be fair. There was one where Maguire was sort of played in, and he just got forced wide, didn't he? And I just felt like if he'd gone straight, the lad might have brought him down, but he sort of tried to go wide, couldn't get a decent shot away, and then Moxon blazed over the loose ball that came from that. And then Garner tried his luck with a volley from about 40 yards, didn't he? That sat up quite nicely for him, but he just couldn't quite get over the ball. So they're the only real sort of chances for United. Into the second half, there was a few chances for Peterborough from distance, for Mason Clark and for Randall. Both tried the luck from distance. We'll talk about the penalty shouts in a minute. We'll keep that sort of separate from the chances. And then, the goal for Peterborough. Really frustrating this because we defended so well, and then it's probably not as sloppy as some of the other chances we've conceded this season, is it? Would you say? But it's just a very good ball to the box, but a good header from Edwards in the back of the net. Yeah,
basically.
Yeah, it's as simple as that. It was just one of the... Go on.
Yeah, it's just one of those set pieces that goes against you. You know, there's not much you could really say.
Simo didn't argue too much about it. He didn't really sort of slate anyone too much. I think he was kind of like a bit frustrated, but kind of like, he accepted a very good ball and a good header, and it's a goal. And from there, you know, we had a bit of a go, and it was kind of felt like the game was drifting away a little bit. And then late on, really sloppy bit of play from one of their players. I don't know who it was that committed the foul on the left. There was no real need for it because it was into the last minute of injury time. One of our players gets brought down, and Callum Guy, full credit to him, getting on with it quickly. He basically, rather than wait for Moxon to come over, he said, no, I'll loft it in. Lofts the ball into the box. It's headed clear to the edge of the box where Gibson, 20 yards out, takes a touch and then smashes a low shot that takes a massive deflection off the defender and completely wrong foots the keeper and ends up in the back of the net. And Brunton Park goes balmy. I'm sure you were going balmy from your seat in the B stand for this one, Don.
Yeah. You know, yes, it took a deflection, but given the shambles of the penalty shout, I think it was, I think it was fair. I mean, overall, a neutral would probably have said a draw was about right for this game.
Yeah, it's an interesting, wasn't it? Because I agree with you. I think as well, you've got to say about Gibson's effort, Gibson's goal, because it was on target. It was a really controlled shot, wasn't it? And I think I said this on, we'll talk about, I've appeared on another show recently, so we'll talk about that at the start of the second half. But I mentioned the fact that in that situation, he's probably the player I would most want to be on the ball taking a shot from that distance, because he is very controlled and technically very good with it. Really well hit. But yeah, if you look at the bare stats, Dan, you'd probably say, actually, Peterborough probably deserved it, twice as many shots, way more shots on target. Yeah. But actually, I thought they probably were better. And I thought, if I look at the whoscored.com stats, there's every chance that they're, going to be on top in terms of, the average score for the players for this game. But actually, when you look at it, we got slightly better overall scores than them. for this one, and that genuinely really surprised me. I was like, wow, I thought they'd be maybe a few points ahead, but I'm just loading up the scores here again now. The average score for our players was 6.62. Oh, it's changed now. Now, this is really weird. It keeps doing this. I mean, I look like an absolute idiot now. It was 6.59 to us before and 6.57. And it's now changed to 6.65 for them and 6.62 for us. So very balanced. Let's just put it that way, okay? So yeah, draws a fair result. That's enough of me rambling on about that. That's really annoyed me, that, because it's made me look stupid. But yeah, terrific effort really in terms of the way the players played. It was a tough test, wasn't it? They're a strong, pacey side. As you say, they're a side that should be challenging for a place in the Championship next season, or potentially, shouldn't they, come next May?
Yeah, they're going to be up there. It'd be a surprise if they're not. But I'll tell you something, when you look at the list of teams we've played so far, most of them are at the top of the table.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And Bolton
Oxford, Stevenage, Peterborough, Derby, Port Vale, Wycombe, Exeter, Lincoln. That's 8 of the top 11 in our 11 games.
Yeah, it goes straight to me. It's not been the easiest start in the world, and we've not been blown away by anyone, have we? That's the key thing. No one scored more than 2 goals against us yet, so you know it shows we're
it's not. We haven't been hammered. We haven't been hammered 4-0 anywhere. You know, just.
Yeah, touch wood on that one, Dan. Be careful you're playing Bolton this weekend. But yeah, well, let's talk about the refereeing decisions and the penalty shouts. As a referee, I thought he was actually all right up until the first penalty shot. I thought he'd been fairly balanced in his decision making. I don't get it. I don't get these decisions. The first one, the Maguire one. Maguire gets to the ball first, doesn't he?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When you watch it, you can see the kick takes him down.
It's one of those ones where the player just nips in just before the defender's going to kick it. And that's a penalty. Yeah. I can't get how he's not given that one. I think he's just thinking it's that tight. Oh, I'm not sure. I don't want to give it in case it's wrong. Then you've got the shirt pull on Jordan Gibson. Now, I've heard some people say that, this would be very soft to give this one. He's pulled his shirt about a metre.
It's probably the least likely for me of the 3 main ones.
But
I get the argument for. Yeah, I get the argument for, and I get the argument against, and those sort of things boil down to how much give and take a referee gives.
Yeah,
you know, and where he was when the pull happens.
I think the fact that it's so exaggerated and you can see it so clearly makes it worse, doesn't it? I think when there's a tiny little pull or something in the box, you don't really think much of it. And, you know, if Gibson throws himself down there, then surely the ref's got to give it because it's a blatant pull of the shirt. But he doesn't. He sort of kept going, didn't he? And you could see he was frustrated that nothing was given. I think he thought he was outside the box and maybe he was going to get a free kick for it. But because it was in, he didn't get given. The handball... I'm astonished that this one wasn't given. What do you think?
It's from where I sit up in B stand, the referee put his whistle to his mouth and was about to point. The only thing I can offer is the linesman spoke to him in his ear and went, "No pen," and he's changed his mind.
I 100% think you're right. That if you watch the pitch side Blues, he has the whistle in his hand. He's ready to go to his mouth, and he looks across at the linesman. And the linesman would say no, because what I would say is, to be fair on the ref, his view will be obstructed by the defender in terms of seeing whether it definitely hit his hand. But the linesman is looking straight across at it. He can see that clear as day. How he's not that?
A lot of people slag the referee off. I think the linesman's got off lightly because I honestly think he'd won a competition to have a go at being a linesman. He was that bad.
You know what? Some people have only said those 3 chances and they've said, Terry Ablade died for his. I think that one's borderline as well, you know.
Yeah.
There's a bit of a shirt pull and it looks like he might even have his leg clipped as he's going down. He's exaggerated it, but you can see why he's done it because he's not given the other ones. So it was, at least 2 of those could have been penalties for me. at the very least. You know, you get one of them and you take a 1-0 lead in a game like that. It's a completely different game, isn't it? You know, and then they go and get their goal on after.
It's an old saying, but big decisions make matches, and not giving blatant penalties. You know, if we got at least one of those penalties, there's a chance we win that match. You know.
Yeah, we dig in basically and get a result possibly. There you go.
If we get 2 penalties, I don't think many Peterborough fans would complain if we got 2 penalties.
No.
You know, get 2 penalties, score them, we win that game.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
You know, more than likely.
4-3-3. Let's move on to talk about formations because we talk about refs too much on air sometimes. 4-3-3. Did it work?
I thought it did in general.
I'd say 4-3-3, 4-1-4-1, as you say as well.
Yeah. It's fluid, isn't it? Depending if you're defending or attacking, you know. But it certainly shows it's got a place this season.
Do you think?
I think over the season we will still flick between, but we're used to transitioning from standard 3-5-2 to 4-3-3 if and when John Mellish gets moved up. So it's not as though it's alien to us and brand new, is it? You know, we do play it a bit in game. You know,
I do think it looks better with an actual midfield 3 in there, though, and Gibson playing as one of the wingers. Again, if we're going to do that a bit more over the season, I think I'd like to see us sign a winger, either a free transfer if there's one available now, or in January in the transfer window potentially. I think I'd like to see us sign at least one winger to potentially work into that situation. I don't know what you think.
The problem with getting free agents at this time of year is they'll take 2 or 3 weeks to get up to match speed. Well, full fitness, and then match speed another week or 2 later. There is a few out there, but it's what state are they in? You know, we would need someone to come in and pretty much make an instant impact, and the chances of that happening are slim.
Yeah.
There would be nothing wrong with taking a free agent, maybe mid-November, end of November, early December, with the idea of getting them up to speed for Christmas and January.
Yeah.
You know,
it'd have to be someone pretty good, wouldn't it? That's the thing.
You
can't be just looking at any old player coming in that situation, or you end up with a load of Ben Tomlinsons and Junior Joachim's, don't you? So, let's talk about some individual performances then. Well, let's start with the goalkeeper debate first of all. As I say, surely that's the holy place to lose now, isn't it? I thought he came in and I thought he was really, really good, actually. Dominated in terms of his stuff. His distribution was very good as well, actually.
Distribution was decent. We know he's a good shot stopper. Didn't have much chance with the goal. I think it might have been, was in goal that would have went in. Yeah, he's basically said, "This is my shirt again." You know,
Simo's comments very interesting, weren't they? That he was very talking about the fact that he's been very different in training, actually, and very vocal. He's been quite impressed with him, hasn't he, in terms of his attitude and the way he's responded to being dropped, which is a good thing to see, isn't it? You know, you want to see that from a player when they're dropped. You don't want them to be happy that they're dropped, especially for a goalkeeper. But yeah, he seems to have responded in a really good way, and I'd agree with you. I think for me, he deserves a run of at least 4 or 5 games now, because at the end of the day, Anderson made 3 mistakes in 6-7 games. So Hodey deserves a little bit of slack now to potentially show that I am the number 1 choice here. So, yep. In terms of defence beyond that, what do you think about Lavelle and Mellish as a centre back pairing? I thought they did really well. I thought, other than that early little scare with the Clark Harris one, they generally kept them at bay, didn't they? There was a lot of long range shots and that kind of thing. But actually, defensively, the pair of them, especially Mellish as well, because we think of Mellish as this gung ho, bombing up and down the pitch, a bit chaotic defender, but actually a really disciplined performance alongside Lavelle from him.
Yeah, no, I think it was Lavelle on Instagram posted a picture of the two of them.
Yeah,
I think late in the game or the end of the game, saying with the handshake, as I say, good partnership, and yeah, they did play quite well. I mean, I've said at the start of the season, I think Lavelle becomes a big player for us in time. I know Hunts was was on the bench this week. I think in time he probably takes Hunt's place in the middle of a three, because unfortunately Father Time will catch up with Hunt's. We don't want it to, but it's going to at some point, and it wouldn't be a surprise if you saw the back three of Barkley, Lavelle, Mellish for a bit at some point.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. And it's good to see though that Mellish has shown he can actually play in a back four, because that was probably one concern fans had, wasn't it? That if he has to play a back four, is Mellish capable of playing in that? Well, yeah, he's shown he can against a very good team as well. So that's a real positive to take from it. Joe Garner in attack, a bit of a tough evening for him, wasn't it, really? Didn't have too many chances. He kept the defenders occupied, though, didn't he, as much as he could, and, put himself about, but not really one of those games for him in terms of opportunities.
No. Again, it's just not happening in that final third fully, is it? We get chances. Maguire's appearance, I've seen some people say he was brilliant and others say he was off form, and I think I'm in between the two. I just think it didn't really happen for him, but he wasn't brilliant. He certainly wasn't terrible.
I thought the best stuff from Maguire was when he actually came inside, because he was playing out wide for a lot of the game, wasn't he? He was sort of the wide right player. Gibson was on the left. But actually, the best chance he's got when he sort of snuck inside and went to be the central striker out of nowhere, and he got in a couple of times behind the back. And the thing that's encouraging me for me about Maguire is that he seems to have sorted his fitness issues that he had before he came to us. He's managed to stay fit pretty much, hasn't he? He's only missed like one game. And in fact, the game he missed wasn't a fitness issue, was it? It was a personal issue. So it's been really encouraging to see how many games he's got. And I think with the right strike partner, he can make a real impact, can't he?
Yeah. I would like to see Edmondson and Maguire get a run.
Simo seems to have gone a bit off Edmondson, though, doesn't he?
Yeah, I know.
It's a bit of a shame.
But I do think there'd be something to work with there. And even if you played with a three, Edmondson can play a little bit wide as well. So you could have Maguire in the middle of, say, Gibson and Edmondson,
Yeah, I probably would be more inclined to do that. And I can't see Garner starting this weekend, because I can't see him starting 2 games in a row at his age, and that's just been fair, isn't it? Especially with the shift he's had to put in there, and obviously against Wycombe in the second half when we were down to 10 men for that game. So yeah, I'd imagine there's a chance that Plange either comes back in or Edmondson comes in for the weekend game. Possibly we'll have to wait and see with that.
Yeah.
Jordan Gibson as well, another fantastic performance from him, wasn't it? Really, he really has stepped up at League One level, hasn't he? And Simo made a point of the fact that some of the players, I think, tried to claim that he's Simo's favourite, he's the teacher's pet. But Simo's like, well, actually, he's the player I've brought into my office most to give constructive criticism and say, this is what you need to be doing better at. And he seems to be taking that on board, doesn't he?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I'm really impressed with him. And I said on the Carlisle social thing that I did with Radio Cumbria the weekend, during the week, sorry. I genuinely think once the takeover is done, he's one of the players I'll be looking at potentially extending his contract, because he's out of contract at the end of the season. I think he's worth at least another year potentially at this level. Whether he'd want to stay or not, I don't know. Maybe he'll fancy himself moving back down towards the Midlands way, but I'd love to see him stay a bit longer.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Dave Timmins got a red card after the final whistle, didn't he?
Yeah, he's also had the FA spokesperson tweet today.
Yes,
he's got a charge he's got to answer for now. So
yeah, that Simo did an interview and talked about it, didn't he? But that was before the charge was posted up, I think. So they weren't quite aware of it at that point. But yeah, interesting to see what happens. I don't know what happens in terms of bans with goalkeeping coaches and that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's. I suppose it's no different to any other coach, really, is it?
No, you did think so. So we potentially need to have someone in to do the job, won't we? For that game,
we'd maybe have to sit in the stand and have a radio link down to gather something.
Yeah.
Or would you use your youth team keeper coach for a game?
Yeah. Who is the youth team keeper coach? Is it Tony Caig's lad? I know he does some in the academy, doesn't he? I don't know. In fact, it will be Timmins that does it for the youth team as well, won't he? That they train together usually quite often, don't they? The youth team keepers with the first team, so. Maybe we'll see, Tony Caig's.
I'm just getting it up now.
Yes. While you look that up, Dan, shall we do a 60-second review?
Academy goalkeeping coach is Roman Craig officially.
Well, there you go. So it's Tony Caig's lad, Roman Caig.
Mm.
Yeah, so maybe he'll turn up for that one. You never know. Right. Should we do 6-second review then, Dan, for this one?
Yeah.
And it's one of our regular contributors. Now, this is from young Craig Robson. This hasn't been filtered by his dad because his dad's away this evening, and Craig sent me this.
Yeah, his dad's at a concert tonight. I'm just seeing that on the Facebook earlier.
Interesting to see what Craig's got to say, what he's going to get away with. So here's Craig's 6-second review of the Peterborough game.
Hi, I'm Craig, and this is my 60-second review. Said that just for you, Greg. Well, it really was similar to most games. Could have won, but we didn't score when we had the chance, which was a shame because I thought we were the side that deserved a win after, to be fair, in the first half we were definitely on top and we put up a really good fight in the second half. There were just 2 really bad goals to concede. Thomas Holly. And now that's 2 pens conceded by Anderson. I thought the first half especially they couldn't handle Gibson and that Callum Guy played really well against people that, to be fair, were twice the size of him. I thought that the ref was poor and if we'd have gotten pen for the handball, it was a completely different game. But it happens so often where we see that we're just the better side, but we can't score. I definitely thought Gibbo was man of the match and I was pleased to get him see it. But, I mean, overall, I didn't think it was a poor performance, not by a long shot, but it would have been better if we'd have scored. You know, on to the next one, up the Blues.
There you go, pretty comprehensive there from Craig. Pretty much to the point. Yeah. I don't think I disagree much of that. I do love the fact that everyone who's contributing now is saying their name and that they're doing a 6-second review to start. All because Greg said it annoyed him.
Yeah.
So he did message me and say, I've deserved that, basically. I brought that up. So there you go. Not much else to say about this one then, Dan. I think that's pretty much covered, haven't we? Pretty happy with that in terms of the performance and results.
Shall we do the quiz question before we go to the break?
We'll do it after we do the League One results from midweek. We'll just cover them quickly. So first up, Blackpool's decent run came to an end. They lost 3-1 at home against Derby. Good result for Derby, that one. Bolton, our opponents, they got a 3-2 win over Stevenage, which we'll be talking about in the ex-Blue section as well, won't we?
Yeah.
An ex-Blue involved in all 3 goals in that game. Bristol Rovers got a 3-0 win over Port Vale. Burton Albion got a 2-1 home win over Wigan. Wigan's form's really dropped since we got the draw against them, hasn't it?
Yeah, basically.
They got the result against Bolton after that, but then since then they've really found it a bit tougher, haven't they? Barnsley, they got a 4-0 win over Cambridge. There's a brilliant bit of footage from this, Dan. I don't know if you've seen it. One of the Barnsley subs, I think, at the end of the game is going down the tunnel. And as a Cambridge fan leans over to try and young fan tries to shake his hand, and the Barnsley player goes out to shake his hand and then does the old to your nose thing, saying, you're not getting a handshake off me, mate. Obviously, the 1-1 draw for us against Peterborough. Charlton got a 4-1 win over Exeter, as we say they seem to have been dropping in form as well of late. Cheltenham 0, Fleetwood 2. Cheltenham now, is that 10 games without a goal this season?
It's a good run, isn't it?
It's now, I think it's the
11 now.
11 games, yes. So 11 games without a win, which equals the Football League record, apparently, for the start of the season. Which is astonishing, really, isn't it? When you think about it. There's still plenty of time before they play us, so we're not going to end that run with any luck. It would be sod's law if that happened, wouldn't it, really? But there you go. They've appointed Darryl Clark as the new manager, haven't they? It's quite a decent appointment for them, actually. I think it's quite a smart one. The Leyton Orient Lincoln game was 2-1. Unfortunately, this game had to be abandoned for very sad news, wasn't it, Dan, this one? Because I saw the kiosk tweeted about this, didn't they, during the week? Sadly, there was a medical emergency in the crowd. The referee wasn't going to stop the game, was he? Even though this was happening literally yards away from the pitch.
Yeah.
And I think 2 Orient fans tried to get on the pitch and say to the linesman officials, say, you have to stop the game. And
they sort of got bundled off. People didn't realise what was going on. There's a few videos of people booing them, saying, why are you going on the pitch? But then when others realised that they weren't being listened to, a load went on and did a sit down to say, look what's happening, Yeah.
Sadly, it turns out it's a fellow who did a lot of work for them in the 90s with their tunnel and stuff, isn't it? A guy called Derek. And so sadly the game was abandoned, and then sadly the guy Derek's died, so that's really, really sad news. But
thoughts with everyone.
Yeah, I saw something about Lucas. because Lucas Jensen obviously is the Lincoln goalkeeper. Apparently he was trying to basically urge the ref to stop the game as well because he could see what had happened. So
yeah,
very sad news. Northampton, they got a 3-1 home win over Reading. They're in free fall as well, aren't they? Really, they're below us even with their points deductions as well. So not good for them. Oxford United, they're flying 3-0 win over Shrewsbury.
Well, some of us did predict they'd do all right this season.
Yeah, to be fair, you're absolutely bang on. You're bang on. I'll give you credit there. I've got to say, have you seen one of the goals in this one? The Shrewsbury goalkeeper.
No, I've not seen any of the goals from midweek.
Oh my word! Right. So the Shrewsbury goalkeeper, he tries once to dribble out of his box, gets away with it, goes back into his goal. The ball eventually, I think Feeney plays it back down the line to him, and again he tries to dribble out of his box, gets tackled by one of their players on the left wing, and he lobs it into the empty net from basically from a crossing position. Absolutely astonishing. I have no idea what he was doing there, but Shrewsbury, really, really struggling. And finally, Portsmouth, they really are finding form and have got themselves up to the top of the table now. Still haven't lost a game. 7 wins, 4 draws on 25 points into first place. Ourselves, United, we're in 20th on 8 points. Being honest, I think I'll be quite happy to finish there at the end of the season. If the season ended now, I would be chuffed, wouldn't you? But hopefully we can get a bit higher than that. That's the aim, isn't it? But there you go. Right, should we do the answer to Mike's question before we take the break?
Yeah.
So we'll just repeat the question quickly to remind us.
In 2008, former Bolton and Carlisle defender Danny Livesey was named in League One Team of the Year while playing for the Blues. Now, also in that Team of the Year, we had one other Carlisle player, one former Carlisle player, and a Brunton Park pantomime villain. Who are they?
I think we got it right. I think it's Kieran Westwood.
Kieran Westwood was definitely in the Team of the Year.
Yeah.
Jermaine Beckford was, but I don't think he's a panto villain. I don't know.
I think it's Nicky Bailey, and the main reason I think that is because I know how much Mike hates Nicky Bailey. I think he might have even.
But I don't think he was good enough to get in the Team of the Year that year. For me,
I don't know. I feel like
it's a curveball. It's a curveball. I don't know who it is, but I'm suggesting it's a curveball.
Okay, well, I'm going Nicky Bailey.
It's someone else. Yeah.
Okay, so here's the answer from Mike.
So the other Carlisle player was Kieran Westwood. The former Carlisle player was Jermaine Beckford, and the pantomime villain was Richie Wellens.
Oh wow! Well, that is a curveball. Fair play, Mike. That completely. For some reason, I was sure Nicky Bailey had a great. You know what I'm thinking now? Nicky Bailey was better at Charlton a few years later, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I think at Southend he was decent, but he wasn't that good back then. So, no, fair play. He's caught us out completely there, Mike. That's a really good question. Right, right. We'll take a short break and then we'll be back to the second half of the show, previewing the trip to Bolton.
Hi, I'm Thomas Holy, and you are listening to Brunton Bugle.
We can get Big Thomas back out for the halftime break now, Dan, can't we? Now he's back in the team. Into the second half of the show, and yes, we're looking ahead to the Bolton game. First up, we have the Behind Enemy Line section, as usual. This week, I spoke to Ryan from Trotter Chatter. Was it Trotter Chat? Did I write this down right? Chatter. It is Trotter Chatter. I wrote it down right. Okay. So Ryan from Trotter Chatter. What do we talk about? I talked about what a crazy 20 years or so they've had as a club. How they've rebuilt after almost going bust a few years ago, and whether they can go one better this season compared to last when they just missed out on the playoffs. So here's the chat I had with Ryan earlier in the week. So yes, here we are with the latest episode of Behind Enemy Lines on the Brunton Bugle podcast. And this week we're speaking to Ryan from Trotter Chatter, who's a Bolton fan, obviously, to talk ahead of this weekend's big game. Ryan, good to have you on the show. It's been a remarkable rollercoaster for Bolton fans over the last 20 years or so, hasn't it? When you look at it, you've gone from being in the UEFA Cup, drawing with Bayern Munich and beating Atletico Madrid, to dropping down to League Two and now trying to fight your way back to the Championship. Could you have imagined how things would change in these last 2 decades?
Well, Lee, it certainly has been. I'm only 28 myself, so the glory days were sort of those taken for granted when you were a kid and you don't realise what you've got until it's gone. Sort of my clearest memories are basically from a a couple of seasons before they got relegated from the Premier League and the rot began. Obviously, dark days of basically not. At one point, we nearly weren't a club anymore. And to be honest, the situation what we're in now with a good manager, good owners, and a good atmosphere around the club, I'm happy in League One at the moment. But just for this season, we'll say, yeah. So roller coaster is the word, but mostly down really. So we're waiting for some ups.
Well, I remember like a few seasons back, there was that remarkable season, wasn't there, where you started the season with basically kids playing games, didn't you? And you actually got a few points in those games. That must have been quite a, like you said, that must have been really a dark day, round about then, because like you said, it was so close to your club not existing.
Yeah, it's that saying of how the mighty fall. It was everything throughout the club that was an issue. It wasn't just what was going on the pitch. The manager wasn't a right appointment. Obviously, fans weren't coming to games. Why would they? It was very difficult to get bums on seats, so there was no money going through the club, and the uncertainty with ownership. It was very dark. It was very dark, and we remember very clearly Sky Sports putting a countdown on for us of going into administration. So we still never forgive Jim White for that to this day. But yeah, it feels a bit like how COVID feels like a million years ago. Those days feel far gone now, but it gives you a perspective and an understanding of what other teams are going through when they're in this situation now, and it gives you that level of sympathy as well. But yeah, crazy times, but everything's shining a little brighter now at the moment.
You mentioned about your owners there and how positive the fans are about them. What have they done to make a difference over the last few seasons?
So Sharon Britton is the majority stakeholder at Bolton. She's not flush, but she's injected stability into the club. So we'll never. A big issue with clubs who get relegated is obviously it's the wages that you come down with, and that was a big issue. It was crippling for Bolton, and when you're at a point where your current owners aren't putting money into the club and everything's being ran a little cloak and dagger, it's concerning. And what Sharon's done, she's invested into the club, but she wants to do it properly. I think until we bought Victor Adebayo, we never spent over $500,000 for a player. We were focusing heavily on buying prospects and then selling them on. So like Moneyball, to use of a better phrase, and we've been doing it the proper way. And obviously Mr. Everett's knocked on a door this season and gone, to get us over that line now, we need a little bit more money, and she's given him that. And when we bought some more players and we've invested back into the club as well. We've had new screens done, we've had it painted, and those little touches make a massive difference to see that where the club's going in terms of a positive direction.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people look and think, oh, Reebok Stadium, not that long ago, is a brand new stadium, but actually, pushing on towards 30 years nearly now, isn't it? That it's been open, so little things like that. Sometimes clubs take for granted, don't they? They just let the stadium go to waste a little bit. So it's good to hear that they're investing a bit in that too.
Yeah, it does get thrown around a lot. Like when Adebayo to as an example doesn't have a good game, and they go sort of like those extra screens. We could have bought a different striker, but when you look at the big picture, it's good to see. It is really good to see. I'm happy with how things are going, and a big example I think is when we weren't really scoring many goals apart from Dion Charles, and they wanted to throw money at Johnson Clark Harris on deadline day, and that's not the way we roll. And why would we drop sort of our ethos as a panic buy in such a way?
Yeah, absolutely. Ian Evatt, your manager, he had a bit of a tough start in his first season, didn't he? I think we played you on Boxing Day and we got a 3-3 draw against you guys, and we were 3-0 up half time. And I think around about that time there was a bit of a, is this man up to the job sort of thing? But the second half of that season he was outstanding, and he seems to be quite a popular man with your fans these days.
Yes, this was sort of what worked for him for the good, but sometimes it can be quite frustrating. He's a very stubborn man, and he's a football snob. He likes to play in a certain way, and he wanted to play that in League Two, which, as you know, League Two is a very difficult league, very physical. It can be quite ugly. But what Everett wanted to do, he wanted to play this playing out from the back style of football from that level, and it didn't quite click. It took to January to get the right players in, and obviously he did get us promoted in that first season in League Two. And I think that's what worked for us, and he's sticking with his ethos. And as much as we feel like sometimes, can we just go 4-3-3 and gung ho it sometimes, and maybe lump the ball up every once or twice? But that is it. He's the difficulty with him is overall he's very popular, but he can run his mouth a little bit, and I think it doesn't just rile up the away support; it can rile up the home support when things don't go so well. But I think he's got enough credit in the bank to back himself up at the minute.
Yeah. Looking at your score for this season and the work you've done over the summer, I have to say on our podcast we do a League One. Sorry, I'm thinking I'm in last season now. League One season preview, and I think all three of us predicted you guys to finish in the top two this season, and I think a lot of people are expecting big things. Are you happy with the work you've done? Are you aiming for promotion this season? Surely.
For me, it's certainly promotion or bust this season. I think we weren't quite ready last season. Obviously, the Great Cup win, brilliant, and a playoff finish. But we have to be in the Championship. I say he's invested money in players. We are a little short in places. We've got quite a considerable amount of injuries at the minute, and we're really struggling for bodies. And I think that needs to be addressed in January. So he has brought in some really good players. Dacris Cogley came from League Two, and he's a good player. How he played in that division is beyond me. Nathan Baxter from Chelsea as a goalkeeper. I think he brought in McGomer from Brentford. So he brought in plenty of players, and some questionable, some I'm hoping he'll prove us wrong. But there's an argument. There's more money to be spent. But in terms of league finish, we need to be up there. We need to be, and I think that pressure will make fans turn on Everton if things aren't going so well. There's a lot on the table at the minute. We've got good players who we know can play in the Championship, and we don't want those players to go play in the Championship for a different side. So there's a lot at stake.
Let's talk about some of the links between the squads. I think in the Carlisle squad, the only ex-Bolton player I could see from having a quick look was Sam Lavelle, and I don't think Sam Lavelle played a game for you guys. I think he was unused as a player for you guys. In terms of Bolton, though, 3 links in there: Gethin Jones, Jack Idle, and Kyle Dempsey, obviously a local lad from West Cumbria. Tell us a little bit how those guys have gotten for you.
So Gethin Jones has been basically with Ian Everett since day dot. Him and Ricardo Santos and George Thompson have been from the League 2 days onwards. Gethin Jones at the minute, he's a right back. Everett moved to playing 3 at back with wing backs, and he doesn't quite fit the bill for either. So he might be sort of getting out of his depth at the minute. Kyle Dempsey is he's a great player. Obviously, he's been recently in the news for some unsavoury stuff, but on the pitch, he does the job. He runs well. He passes the ball well. He's tenacious. He's a leader, and he's really important in our side at the minute. Luckily for you guys, he is playing with a bit of an injury at the minute, and with us having a break. Due to our Barnes again being postponed, he might think about resting Dempsey as well and playing somebody else. Who was the third player, sorry?
Jack Iredale.
Jack Iredale, yes. So Jack came last season, had a great start with us playing at left wing back. Wasn't a good fit for him, and he got quite a large injury, so he was out for most of the season. He's coming at centre half this season. Obviously, he got goal and an assist last night, so he's got quite a lot to his game. He's hit and miss, to be honest. He's on a good day, he's brilliant, but he can be a little bit shaky. But nowhere near our worst player.
He's a weird one, Jack, because he came to us and there was big expectations because he'd done well in Scotland and he never really got a chance. went to Cambridge and went and won the promotion or the title, whatever it was, with them from the division. So kind of like it was frustrating. Like, oh, okay, let him go, but there you go. Who are the danger men to watching your squad? Obviously, other than the ones you've mentioned so far. I mean, Ricardo Santos is one that always stands out to me because I don't think I've ever seen him have a good game of football. But I'm sure he is a very good footballer because I keep hearing he is. But every time he plays against Carlisle, for some reason, he has a stink.
Well, he's actually injured at the moment, so you don't need to worry about him. But Rico is one of our best players, and he will play championship football next season, whether it's with us or with another team. Very comfortable on the ball, strong, calm, good passer. Won't let anyone get away with him. Like he put Johnson Clark Harris in his pocket last season, and he wouldn't even know he were on the pitch. Dion Charles, I think he's bagged in 7 of his last 8 games. He scored again last night. He's our main goal threat. Who else have we got? We've got a strong midfield. Josh Sheehan's playing well at the minute as a Welsh international. Good passer of the ball. He's what you call like a luxury player, but he is now he's injury free. He does seem a bit more comfortable getting involved a little bit more. We've got a lot less names this season, so like we had like Kachunga, who obviously played in Germany and in the Premier League. We had like James Trafford and Conor Bradley from Premier League sides, and they were stars. Like they played it at higher level, but we're more of a unit this year. It's more balanced. Like even Dapo Afolayan came from West Ham, played for us last season, and he was moved on as well. We look better more as a unit now. And I think that's why it's more difficult to pick out a star player.
Fair enough. So this weekend, big away following coming down to the Toughsheet Community Stadium.
Very impressed.
Yeah. I think it's our biggest league away following, probably in the last 20, 25 years. But the last time we took Preston in 2011, I think we took 4,100, so I think it'll be just over that. So a lot of Carlisle fans who are going to the game won't have been to your ground, so what can they expect there? I know I've been a couple of times, so I know what to expect, but what can our fans expect?
It's a comfortable family atmosphere, I must say. It's you sort of get a real sense of community around the ground. You don't see any trouble, which is always nice, except when Wigan come, it never seems to end well there. And it's a stadium to be proud of. You hear the word proper team thrown around. We've got a proper stadium and great facilities. Arguably, facilities far too good for the level we're playing at. In terms of home support, we're very emotional. So when things are going well, it can be loud. When things aren't going so well, it can be quite volatile. But you'll certainly hear us. No doubt a good day. There's plenty to do around the ground. So it's a good day out. It's a good day out.
I think there's quite a few of fans going to Preston and Chorley before the game because they're going to be so many. I think they're realistic and know that they probably need to go else for drinks and stuff like that. But there you go. You've been really generous with your time. Thank you, Ryan. Before you go, can you give us a prediction for the game?
Well, I'm just fresh off our podcast and I've just given a very bold prediction which raised a few eyebrows. Looking I'm going off an on paper, very positive 4-0 to Bolton. No disrespect.
Well, no team score more than 2 against us this season, so you'll be doing well if you become the first one to do it. But I think when we looked at the results at the start of the season, we looked ahead to this game and like, oh wow, that's going to be a tough one. So yeah, I'm not saying I would expect it, but with how good you guys are, it wouldn't be probably that much of a shock. But there you go. Ryan, thanks very much for your time and all the best for the rest of the season after this week.
No worries at all.
Yeah, big thanks again to Ryan for giving up his time to speak to us about Bolton Wanderers ahead of this game, Dan. It's one to look forward to, isn't it? I mean, huge way following going down. The trains on the West Coast are going to be absolute carnage. Chorley, Horwich, Preston, all going to be taken over by Blues fans. This is what we wanted to get up for, isn't it? Up into League One.
Yeah. There were certain games, people looked for when the fixtures came out, Blackpool, Bolton, Wigan. These are proper trips for us, I mean, they're nothing really to most of the fans of these clubs, but for us, they're close, Bolton's the easiest one you can possibly do. It's straight down the M6 onto the 61 and you're there. Same with the train down to Preston onto the local train to Horwich Parkway. It's no surprise we've sold. I didn't think we'd maybe sell over 4,000.
No, I've got to say I'm surprised because there wasn't. Wigan's the one we were all hyping, wasn't it? And we were a bit disappointed that it's over Christmas because, typical, isn't it? That's the one we were excited about, and probably Blackpool next. So I have to admit, I'm even shocked at how many we sold for this. It seems to have been very organic almost, hasn't it? The hype that's happened for this. It's not like it's been built up by
every
anyone.
man and the dog's going. There's going to be folk there you haven't seen in years.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, it's our first ever visit there, so kind of, in that sense, you sort of expect that.
Well,
sort
no,
of thing,
it's our second. The first was under COVID.
The first with fans. A first visit for fans to the game, I should say. Sorry, yes. I should say what I've been forgetting to do this season is mention the recommended pub by the London branch for some of these games. So Simon from the London branch has sent me in the pub for this one. It's quite an obvious one. It's the Beehive, which is on a Charlie New Road in Lostock, which is fairly near the ground, isn't it? I think.
Basically, if you come off the train, you go down past the ground, and it's up about 5 to 10 minutes walk up by the big roundabout from memory.
Yeah. There's a lot of options. I'd imagine there'll be a fair few Blues who'll stay in Preston and have a few drinks. I know a lot are going to Charlie.
There's a few
as well.
going to Charlie as well. I mean, we've timed it so we get a pint in Preston on the way down, and then we'll probably head up to that Beehive.
Yeah, I think our plan is we're going to go to Manchester, I think, and have a few drinks on Deansgate or Oxford Road, round about that way, and then catch the train.
Yeah, jump on the train.
Because I should say as well, for anyone going as well, just a reminder that Chelsea are playing at Burnley as well at the 3 o'clock kickoff on Saturday. So there'll be a fair few Chelsea fans in Preston at the same time. So good luck, Lancashire Constabulary, with that one. That'll be a lot of fun for them, I'd imagine. Well, let's look out to this one then, Dan. Playing at the Toughsheet Community Stadium. Easy for me to say, I know. Bolton. Did you tip them to finish top this season? I think you did, didn't you?
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on them so far? What's your thoughts on them in terms of their transfer activity in their squad this season?
Decent. I mean, I'm not surprised they're doing well. Slight dip recently, but not massively. They're still third. Well, they've won the last 2 actually, haven't they? But prior to that, they drew with Peterborough, and I think they lost at Reading, which will have been a disappointment. Yeah.
When you look at the squad, who are the men that stand out for you in there in terms of the sort of quality? Avoiding the ex-Carlisle players, because we'll talk about them separately. But other than that,
I was going to say, I mean, a lot of people. Ricardo Santos against us in the COVID season was atrocious. He's one of their best players.
I've never seen him have a good game. Even when I've watched live games, he's been rubbish, and I'm like, I know he must be a good player because I hear he's a good player from everyone. But it's just a coincidence that every time I watch him, he's dreadful. It's just, and I think he's injured at the moment, so he might not play at the weekend. But yeah, it's a strange one, isn't he? He's a bit of a conundrum with in terms of games against us. Dion Charles is a good striker up front, though, isn't he?
Yeah. I mean, they've got. I think they've got quite a few injuries at the moment and suspensions and whatnot. But on paper, they've got a good squad. I mean, there's a few you can't not name the ex-Blues. I mean, Jack Iredale, Gethin Jones have both done well. Kyle Dempsey.
I think
they're
Jones
good players.
I think Jones is suspended, isn't he? I think he's missing this game. I think he's one of his 3-game ban. I think he's on at the moment. Iredale's an odd one, isn't he? When he was with us, because I thought he looked okay at times, and he was one we hoped for big things from, wasn't he? Because he'd done so well at Greenock Morton, and Beach just never took a liking to him when he came in, did he? He basically just decided, nah, he's not good enough for him. Yeah. And he goes to Cambridge, and he was fantastic for them, wasn't he?
I just think he was possibly a little bit raw when he came to us. There was the odd game where he looked really good. I think it was just the adjustment from the hustle and bustle of Scottish Championship to the English League. But fair play to him. He got his chance at Cambridge, did really well there, and he's one of Bolton's best players now.
Yeah, he's been fantastic for them. And I think with us, he was maybe a bit unlucky that we had Christy Elliott on the other side who wasn't performing either. So when one fullback's not performing, the pressure's on you to do well as well, isn't there? So it's, it was a bit tough for him in that sense. Gethin Jones, good, solid, reliable player for us, wasn't he? Really, obviously not going to be playing at the weekend, but he can never let you down. Kyle Dempsey, look, he's a great player for Bolton, no doubt about it. There's a level of disappointment for me with him because I feel like he could have been so much of the better player if he picked a bit better in terms of his next club when he left us. What do you reckon?
Yes and no. I would say it's one of those, if he used sense when going out drinking, maybe help him a bit in his career.
Yeah, but that's come more recently, hasn't it, that this year? But it's more... I feel like he could have stayed with us one more season, and I think he would have got a better club than Huddersfield in terms of his next move.
Yeah.
I feel like he took the first chance he could to leave, and it's not so much disappointing that he left, it's more disappointing for his career. I feel like he could have gone on to be... He had everything at the age of 18. 10 goals from midfield that season? Captained the team a couple of games. So much ability. And he goes to Huddersfield and he barely plays there. It's just really frustrating, that was at the time. So move on from talking about the squad, Dan. We'll talk about the manager, Ian Evatt. Certainly a confident man, I think it's fair to say.
His videos prove that.
Bordering on arrogant at times. But can't deny he's done a pretty good job in his 2 management jobs so far, hasn't he? And he does like his teams to play quite nice football, doesn't he?
Yeah, strictly talking on his football stuff, he's done well. He's done well. You can't deny that. I mean, he's one of those who rubs a few people up the wrong way, I would say, but he's doing it for the benefit of his team, isn't he?
Not the only thing he rubs up the wrong way. So sorry about that. He's an interesting one. I do wonder if he doesn't get promotion this season with them, whether he might end up leaving of his own accord rather than even being sacked. I think he might look and think, is this as far as I can take Bolton? Because I'd imagine even if he doesn't manage to get them up, he'll have plenty of suitors interested in him, wouldn't he?
You would think so, yeah.
Because he, like I said, he did a brilliant job at Barrow. Look, as much as we might want to joke about it, to take a club like Barrow up from the National League, playing the way they did, fantastic stuff from him. Bolton, he took a bit of a while to get them going there. Obviously, remember that game on Boxing Day, one of the games we were allowed to go to during COVID?
Yeah.
It's an absolute thriller, that one, wasn't it? Well, we were 3-0 up at half time. We probably should have been 5 or 6, shouldn't we?
Yeah.
We battered them, and then second half, we just collapsed.
Yeah.
And it wasn't quite the start of our downfall, was it? But it was kind of one of those first sort of signs of like, okay, maybe we are a bit vulnerable. So yeah, no, he's a great manager, Evatt. They seem to have signed pretty well in the summer. I think Baxter coming in to replace Trafford's a tough call, isn't it, really? Because Trafford was so good for them last season, as we've seen how good he's been for Burnley so far in the Premier League. So, last time out, 3-2 win over Stevenage, as we mentioned. Form-wise, they're currently 8th in the last 6 games form table. They've got a record of drawn 1, lost, drawn 1-1. United are actually up to 18th now. That draws helped them move up a little bit in midweek. In terms of the usual sort of stats and figures, head-to-head wise, it's the 30th meeting between the two sides. Very equal though, isn't it? 11 wins for United, 11 wins for the Trotters, and 7 draws so far. But if you look at the last 10 meetings...
What league table are you looking at?
The last 6 games form table, Dan.
Oh, the last 6 games, yeah.
Sorry.
I was thinking, I'm sure we're 20th.
We're a little bit lower in the actual thing, but there you go. So in the last 10 games between the two sides, not great for United, though, is it? Just the 1 win in that time. You'd kind of expect that. When they've played us in that last, 40 years or something, that covers 41 years back to... I'm just trying to load up the list here again now. I think it goes back to 1982, if my stats are right here. So 1982, if you go back to the free draw in the League Cup, that's 10 games going back. And obviously the 1 win was a 5-0 win in April 1983. But that was back when we were in the... going for promotion, I think, to the But no, sorry, it was. This list I'm looking at is really jumbled up, but yeah, that was in the old Division 2, which some of our younger fans might remember. You remember it vaguely, don't you? Back those days.
No, I hadn't quite started. Well, I remember 85, 86 when we got relegated.
So that's what I mean. You do remember the season at that level, don't you? That's one thing you remember. We did actually get beat 5-0 by them in 1987, and I think a certain former striker played back then, Mr. Ian Stevens, possibly for Bolton back then, right at the start of his career. So there you go. Referee for this one, Seb Stockbridge, sorry, not Stocks, from Tyne Wear. It is his 11th season as an EFL referee, taking charge of 10 games so far this season, handing out 50 yellows and 1 red card. Last season, he handed out 103 yellows and 5 red cards in 34 games. The last United game he took charge of, the 3-2 defeat to Salford City back in April. And what happened in that game, Dan?
What didn't happen?
Yeah, John Mellish got sent off for a shove while we won a penalty. Quite ridiculous that, wasn't it, really? Elliot Watt's play acting caught out Mr. Stockbridge. Hopefully he's going to be a bit better for this one. Right, as we've said, this season we're bringing back the play for both section. Who have you got for this one? There's plenty to choose from, isn't there?
There's a big list. Yeah, there's, when I first started thinking, but I've had to go with this one. He's 63-year-old. He resides in the city. Born in Manchester, striker. Georgia Garney.
I thought you might go for Ian Stevens. I really did. Yeah, I feel like you're holding off that one, aren't you? maybe when we played Cheltenham for his loan spell he had there, possibly, because there's nothing to pick from there. But there you go.
He actually started his youth career at Sheffield United, apparently, George. And then he moved to Bury, and he didn't really. He actually went to Hyde United for the first formative years of his career, but he scored a goal every other game, something like 80 and 170 league games for Hyde, and caught the eye of Bolton, where he had 3 or 4 years, scored a few goals, 100-odd games.
Yeah, just under 1 in 3.
He did have a brief spell at Wrexham on loan towards the end of his time at Bolton. Then he moved to Burnley, which is probably where he's best known for playing at, I would suggest. A couple of seasons at Burnley. Then he became a bit of a nomad for a little bit. Stockport for a few games, Hereford for a few, even back at Hyde United for a game. Then he ended up at Scarborough. He did all right there. And then he actually ended up at Paphos in Cyprus for a season. Once that was done, he came and signed for Carlisle. Did all right. We were just starting to rise again after, finishing bottom of the pile. And he did all right here. He scored a few goals. He was a crowd favourite, and just sort of, he was probably getting on a little bit too much for what was about to happen at the club, but he's one who's looked on fondly at Carlisle. He actually did continue playing for Northwich Victoria for a couple of years and did all right there. And I think his actual last club was possibly Guiseley, where he had a couple of games. But he's he's made his home in the city, and he's well thought of by people who were watching Carlisle when he was here, and that's Georgia Garney.
Yeah, a bit of a cult player, isn't he? I think is the way you describe him. One of those players who, works really hard, chips in a fair, his fair share of goals.
I'm not sure how true this is.
Go on.
But seemingly, he was the first black person to play for Bolton Wanderers.
Oh, was he?
I don't know the validity of this claim because it is just on Wikipedia. But seemingly, yeah.
I thought you were going to tell the other story there about him, but are you going to leave that one out, I think?
Yeah.
We'll leave that. I think most fans know the story.
It's well known and easy found.
I'm going to try and bash through as many of these as quickly as possible because it's a long list, but I think it's worth listing some of them because some cracking names in there. The two Bens, the goalkeepers, Ben Anik and Ben Amos, have both had spells there. Ryan Baldacchino. I'm going to put it out there, right? I think Ryan Baldacchino is one of the most overrated Carlisle players of the last 20 years or so. the way some of our fans used to bang on about him, and I never got it. Never ever got it with him.
No, me neither. Yeah.
Ian Bailey. I think Ian Bailey.
Put it this way, he was no Adam Rundle.
No, exactly, and Rundle wasn't the greatest player in the world either. So, it goes to say. Ian Bailey, who I think was the first ever player we had on loan. Funny enough, so you got an interesting little record from there. There are some belting players in here: Peter Beardsley, Jermaine Beckford, Graham Bell, Reece Bennett, Michael Bridges, Danny Butterfield, Zach Clough. Yeah, less said about him, the better probably. Brandon Comley, Julian Darby. I always quite liked Julian Darby. He's kind of sort of like a steady sort of player. He didn't play that many games for us, did he? He was a steady player in that Ian Atkins season. Kyle Dempsey, as we obviously mentioned already. Andy Dibble. One of Andy Dibble's many clubs that he played for. Mark Ellis started his career there, but he didn't play a first-team game. Wayne Entwistle, he seems to get mentioned every now and then on here. Paul Fitzpatrick was a popular player as well, wasn't he, in his time with us? Mark Gavin, Matty Glennon, Arthur Ganua, Mike Graham. Would you see Mike Graham play? Was it sort of towards the start of your time watching us, I think?
Yeah.
Possibly, Bob Hatton, Dean Holsworth. Got that one right, thankfully. Darren Holloway, Mark Howard and Chris Howarth were both there, 2 goalkeepers. The legend,
he's a brilliant one.
George Iliev. Oh, my word. John McGee, a long-term listener of this, will be feeling, you're probably having shivers hearing that name from that Portsmouth game. He was bloody awful, wasn't he? If you look at him, I think he played 4 games for us and then he left Bolton after he went back after his loan and played 1 game for a team in Bulgaria and then just disappeared off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
Strange one, that, isn't it? Really strange one. Jack Iredale, obviously we mentioned before. Matt Jansen had a short spell there. Geffin Jones, Luke Joyce had a spell there as a youth player. Sam Lavelle, David Lee. David Lee's one of those ones who you kind of wanted to sign for longer, didn't you? Because he was good in the brief spells you saw for us, but never quite happened, did it?
No.
Pint-sized winger we had in the early noughties. Gary Medine, Neil McDonald, Joe McKee. Can't believe you forgot he was there. Lubo Michalik, Sean Miller, George Agani, you've mentioned already, Dan. Tony Philliskirk, Jamie Proctor, David Reeves, of course, had a decent spell there. Jack Round, Barry Siddle. I think you could be Barry Siddle for another one, didn't you, early this season, possibly?
Yeah.
Jeff Smith, Johan Smith, the original USA chanting. Who else? Ian Stevens, as obviously mentioned before. Cleveland Taylor, Mark Tierney, James Trafford, Peter Valentine, Andy Walker, Paul Warhurst, Hayden White, Tom White, Stuart Whitehead, Ben Williams, and finally, one of my favourites, Mark Beef Winstanley. Great player, was a big Mark Winstanley, wasn't he, back then? And there you go. That's it's a hell of a long list, isn't it? But there you go. Right, let's talk about United end of the game then, Dan. Injury-wise, some good news. Ben Barkley back in training. It's good to see.
Should possibly available for Saturday, according to Simo's update today.
And then we've got a gradual return of 3 separate players, haven't we? So Dylan McGeoch at the end of this month, Taylor Charters at the end of November, and Josh Coyote towards the end of December, isn't it? So there's a clear path there, isn't there? Those players coming back, and I think McGeoch's probably the most frustrating of the lot, isn't it? Really, because we kind of hoped he could be quite good, and he just hasn't.
It was a bit of an innocuous knock that he got.
Yeah, he picked up a couple of them, and that's a slightly concerning, isn't it?
I think he got a bad kick on the calf or something, and it's just in the wrong place, and it's
I should say, actually, we haven't done too many loan watches this season. In terms of Max and Kai, not a great week for them. Adam got beat 5-0 by Hamilton on the Friday night.
Wasn't it?
Yes. Okay, for this one, formation, Dan, what are you going to do? Are you going to stick with 4-3-3? You're going to go back to 3-5-2?
I think we'll go back to 3-5-2 on the basis they play 3 at the back as well.
Yeah. Holy staying in net, I presume?
Yeah.
And I'm guessing Huntington comes back in?
Yeah, I would say so.
Who do you bring him in for?
That's the $1 million question, isn't it?
You think surely it's going to be Alfie, you'd think, wouldn't you?
You would probably think Alfie. And I didn't think he had a terrible game.
I think he played well, I think he was busy and he broke quite well actually on the counter-attack a few times. So, he'd be unlucky, but I think he'd probably understand in the circumstances. You know, Gibson's been excellent this season, and Moxon and Guy are just the first picks at the moment, aren't they? Really, they're going to start most games, so that's what I expect. So yeah, you probably put Gibber back into the midfield three. What do you do in attack though?
Well, I said it earlier. I'd like to see. I don't think it'll happen though. Edmondson and Maguire.
I agree with you. I think I'd like to see that. I'd like to see.
I think that is that could be the combination, and I've got this feeling that it's one of those that when it does happen, we will all say, "Why haven't we done this earlier?"
Yeah, I feel like Edmondson will thrive off a big away following as well. I feel like he could really perform in that. Plange, I think he's done well when he's come in. I'm just still not convinced, and I'm not convinced about him and Maguire. I think that's where I've got the problem.
Yeah,
there's only so long you can persist to try and get a partnership out of them. I just don't think it's worked.
I think with Garner, he's an impact player for me now.
I agree, and I think occasionally you'll start him. And I think in this game he'd be perfect for coming on as a sub late on to try and win your free kicks and really annoy a big home crowd as well. I think he'd be really good at that. Subs wise, it's just Anderson back in for Breeze. You'd think.
You would think, possibly Barker on the bench.
Maybe for Whelan, but then Whelan's been on there for a while and he's a bit fitter. Whelan obviously coming back in for Huntington.
I know we don't talk about it, but we've got a game in that godforsaken trophy next week. You would imagine Barkley and Whelan will play.
Yeah, you'd imagine they're both playing that, so that's good game time for them. Probably Jack Ellis as well, probably in that as well. I mean, looking ahead to the next 6 fixtures, it does ease off a little bit, doesn't it? You've obviously got Portsmouth away, which is going to be a very tough game. But other than that, actually, Orient at home is a game you can target for points. And then Burton at home, definitely. Cambridge away. And then obviously you've got the FA Cup as well, which is something to look forward to. So hopefully get a good draw in that. In terms of predictions, I think it's still the same. I don't think any of us predict... Well, we didn't do predictions for midweek, of course.
Well, I was going to go 1-1 Jordan Gibson, personally.
Oh, were you? I bet you were. I probably was going to go for a draw on that, to be fair. I think all three of us probably would have done. But what are you going to go for this one, Dan?
Let's upset the apple cart and have a 3-1 classic away day in front of Hordes.
Ooh.
And goals. I'm going to go for Maguire, Gibson to get another. And we're due a goal off a corner, Sam Lavelle.
Against his former club as well. You know what? I'm going to join you on that. I'm going to go 3-1 win. No, I can't put Lavelle as well. You've put in that. That would be unfair. I'm going to go 3-1. Paul Huntington will get one of them. Ryan Edmondson. And why not Owen Moxon? I think he's due a big performance, a real big performance for this season. So I'm going to go 3-1 win as well. Why not be optimistic? Right, let's have Mike's prediction for this one as well.
I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw with goals from Lavelle and Ablade.
Well, you're going for Big Tezza to score a goal. Ooh. There you go. Right.
I saw him score a goal last midweek.
Did you?
Carlisle City in the Cumberland Cup.
Oh, of course, yeah. You were at that game, weren't you? Not the best weather for that one, was it? I think it's fair to say.
Not the best game, never mind the best weather.
No, I think it's fair to say. Right, X-Files time, Dan. There's quite a bit to cover this week, actually, isn't there? There's a fair few goals and a few little bits.
Let me just get my notes. In other words, my phone that's currently on charge because it's low as. Right, X-Files. Going back to the weekend, we had Naki Wells scored for Bristol City in a 3-2 home defeat to Stoke. Regan Slater, didn't we mention him the other week?
We did, yeah. He's got a couple of goals now, yeah.
Yeah, he netted in Hull's 1-1 draw with Plymouth. Did you see the tale about the Plymouth bus that broke down there?
No, I didn't, no.
One of the Plymouth buses broke down at Hull, and then the replacement bus broke down. I think they got home at something like 10 a.m. on Sunday.
Wow.
After having 3 or 4 separate buses.
God.
If you search on Google it or Twitter search it, it should come up.
Wow.
Jack Marriott scored the only goal. Fleetwood's 1-0 win over Orient. Big
He's
win
a hit
for them.
of form, hasn't he?
Yeah. Pat Brough scored for Northampton late in the game. 2-0 win at Exeter. I saw this goal. It was a nice little finish. Andy Cook scored a penalty in Bradford's 3-1 home defeat to Walsall. Bradford, who are now managerless, unlucky mark. Never mind. Adam Campbell scored for Crawley, 3-0 home win over Sutton, still doing all right.
Yeah, he's doing really well at Crawley, isn't he? He's getting a bit of form, yeah.
Stop the press, this is not a fire drill. Tyrese Omatai scored for Forest Green in the 2-1 home defeat to Morecambe.
Do you know what, Dan? This was so unexpected. You didn't actually even put it in the group. I spotted it when I was looking for the thing. I was like, oh, wow, it's that much of a shock.
Yeah, that switched off to him, you know.
Yeah.
Into non-league, here's a good one, a good story. Toby Shaw-Silver got his first goal for Maidenhead in a 1-1 home draw with Chesterfield. That's a decent draw for them.
Yeah.
Byron Webster popped up with a goal for Bromley in a 3-1 home win over Gateshead. Angelo Balanta scored in the 3-1 defeat at Ebbsfleet. He's been playing well at the moment.
It's 3 games in a row
because I mentioned him in the play for both, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah, exactly that.
And then Tristan Abraham scored for Welling in a 2-2 draw with Gosport Borough in the FA Cup, which leads me on to midweek, where Tristan Abraham scored 2 in the 4-2 win in the replay.
Do we miss him going to Welling United? I feel like we just completely missed that. Did we mention it?
I'll definitely put it in the chat when it happens.
We probably did say I just completely glossed over it. But there you go.
We mentioned earlier Jack Iredale had a hell of a game for Bolton against Stevenage. He scored, won a penalty, and got an assist. So he helped all 3 goals.
His assist for the third goal is a beauty as well. It's a lovely lofted ball down the middle for Josh Sheehan to score the goal. Really, really good assist. He's doing really well there.
Jack Marriott scored again for Fleetwood in a 2-0 win at Cheltenham. That's a couple of good results for them, isn't it? Andy Cook scored again. Bradford, a 2-1 loss at Tranmere, as I said. The game that cost Mark Hughes his job.
Oh, dear.
I ummed and ahed over this one, but he did go from Carlisle. Joe White scored his first goal for Crewe in a 2-0 home win over Gillingham.
To be fair,
Gillingham who've now sacked Neil Harris today.
That's ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, to be fair, we do include Dean Henderson and James Trafford.
James Trafford, So. And last but not least, for goals anyway, Nathan Thomas scored for Marks United.
Sorry, I misspelled that.
In a 5-2 home defeat to FC United. Little bit of other news. Simon Grand made his 700th appearance while playing for Lancaster City. Is that now?
Yeah, it's a fantastic achievement, isn't it? He scored another goal as well the other day. He's incredible scoring.
And one that most people have probably seen. But Jamie Devitt signed for Workington until the end of the season with his old mate Danny Granger.
Yeah, really good. It's a good move for him, isn't it? Really, because there's not going to be as much pressure there. He can probably only train maybe once a week with him. He doesn't have to go both days, I'd guess. And yeah, just fits quite nicely, doesn't it? And for that, at that level, he should take the piss, shouldn't he? Really?
Yeah,
if he's fit. Yeah. And the last bit is the Keith Millen news, which I didn't include because it came in that late.
Gillingham. I just mentioned there. Neil Harris lost his job. Keith Millen's been put in temporary charge.
Was he head of recruitment there or something like that, I think?
He's either that or involved with something, but I'll be off to Bet365 to see the price of their opponents for the weekend.
Yeah, I'd certainly fancy them to beat them because, let's just say he wasn't particularly great with us, was he? But there you go.
Yeah.
Well, that's it then, Dan. We're at the end. It's a long episode, this one, isn't it? Even when you had on the Behind Enemy Lines section, but 2 games to cover and plenty to talk about. And a lot to get excited about this weekend, isn't it, for the trip to Bolton? I'm sure there'll be so many Carlisle fans travelling down the M6 and the M61 and obviously down the West Coast line as well. It's going to be a real... It's one of those games you just look forward to, isn't it? You know, just up there with Darlington away in 2006 and, the Preston away in 2011 and stuff like that. It's going to be good and let's just hope the team can put performance in, yeah?
Yeah, definitely.
Pray and hope, don't we? Thanks once again to our sponsor, London Branch, for their support this season. Always appreciated. We'll be back with a review of the Bolton game next week and a look ahead to the home game against Leyton Orient. Other than that, all I've got left to say is thanks for listening and up the Blues.
Up the Blues.